This is DRF Race of the Day. Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF Race of the Day for Friday, January the 15th, race number 7 at Aqueduct. Let's throw up the field for this nice optional claiming race. $62,500, your optional claiming price. Now winners of 2 other than is the condition. And you can download free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Access them, handicap along with us, and Mike, maybe a chance to get a little bit of a price in this race, because with all due respect for the number 1 Shotsky, and I have a lot of respect for the morning line favorite, we haven't seen this horse in a long, long time.
Yeah, true enough. We'll see if he actually goes favorite in here, but he certainly could. And listen, to me, he's the most interesting horse in the race, just to see what he does here. This is a horse we haven't really seen since early in his 3-year-old season, and he was pretty good at that time. So we'll see what he does here, but taking a short price on him, it does sort of feel like maybe this race is open to some other horses.
He's a horse that also likes to be forwardly placed, and our friends at Timeform US believe that this race could be run at a brisk pace. We throw up the Timeform US pace projector. It's a red bar situation, and Shotsky, the number 1, might be involved with the 3 Ragtime Blues, who was on the lead in his most recent start, and the 6 High Velocity, who showed high speed last time. This pace should be solid at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with Shotsky, because, I don't feel like, I know that he wired the Remsen, Dan. I don't feel like he's a horse who necessarily has to be on the lead. So, if this pace does get fast in this race, it doesn't, necessarily have to work against Shotsky, but, coming off of a layoff, breaking from the rail, and if the pace is fast and he winds up chasing it, all those things could really work against him.
I agree that I don't believe that he is a need the lead type. I think he showed that in the street sense last year. Even when he was 4th, he kind of was 4 wide all the way around there, and I thought he gave a good performance. The Remsen was just a situation where I think Luis Saez realized there was a strong inside bias, put the horse on the lead, and let Shotsky's heart and determination take him the rest of the way. He ran really well in the Withers, I thought, on a pressured pace, and then in the Fountain of Youth, things just didn't work out. He missed some time with bone bruising.
Yeah, again, to me, he's a very interesting horse on the way back, because I realized that, the last 4 starts for him were all in stakes races, and he only won one of those when he got loose in the Remsen. But to me, he ran really well in the other 3 as well. He didn't win any of them. The street sense you mentioned, he was wide. I thought his Withers was good, taking a lot more pressure than he did in the Remsen. And he was wide again in the Fountain of Youth in a race that he just wasn't going to win. I don't know. I felt like this horse was a little underrated, and in some ways it was disappointing that he didn't get to run again after February 29th of his 3-year-old campaign. I think he has a lot of upside. This trainer does a good job. His numbers aren't great off of long layoffs like this, but it's a very small sample.
No, but I agree with you about him being underrated, and this horse also has shown a very strong will to win. Next up is the number 2, Mad Money's, reclaimed by Rudy Rodriguez 2 starts back, and the first start back for Rudy, well, it didn't go very well after a poor break.
Right. He didn't run well last time, first off the claim for Rudy. So we'll see if he can bounce back. His races 2, 3, and 4 back, he earned figures for those races that say he's a contender in here. I wonder if he's in just a little bit too tough at this level, though.
Ragtime Blues, the number 3, was a graded stakes place sprinter for Bob Baffert last spring. Let's go back to his most recent start at Keeneland, going 1 1/16 miles. This was his first route effort. He showed high early speed in this race, and he's going to get tired. He'll finish a faltering 3rd, but the runner-up in this race, Sonneman's a promising older horse this year. He came back to win with a 94 buyer and then was 2nd behind a very, very good horse in the Tenacious with a 93 buyer. Ragtime Blues after this race went through the auction ring, and maybe Johnny Terranova got a bargain, a once $500,000 yearling purchased for only $65,000.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what he does. That, as you mentioned, that was his first route attempt last time. He really had no trouble getting to the early lead in that race. The 1-2 finishers, who I think are both pretty good horses, Dan, even the winner of that race, who had been campaigning on turf, that horse has a big pedigree. He ran really well on dirt in that race. So I think this horse did face a good field last time. But he also, in a lot of ways, had all the best of it, and it was really no match through the stretch. I just want to see what kind of price he is. I'm not a huge fan of this horse's, but I recognize that at the right price, he could be interesting.
Let's watch the number 4 Zoomer's last race. And the question I have to ask you, Mike, is where did this race come from? Zoomer's always been okay, But this is a 21-1 gate to wire gambit, and his first start really going long in a long time. And he's just heart and determination holding off the runner up in the stretch. Was this a situation where just the inside was the place to be and Zoomer was on the right? It was at right place, right time, or has Zoomer figured this out?
Yeah, this was a very strong rail day at Aqueduct, and this horse really took advantage. He broke from the inside post. His bug rider let him use his speed, and he just wouldn't relent through the stretch while riding the best part of the track in there. I'm not taking anything away from this horse, Dan, because his prior effort, he was struggling to win races, but he was actually in really good form, and he had gotten unlucky more than once along the way into that last race. I can't sit here and say I'm going to expect him to run another 97 in this race over a fair track. But he was a little dirtied up on the way into that. And I do think cutting back to a one-turn mile actually helps this horse.
I agree, and he's also shown that he can sit a little bit off of the pace and be successful, because the trip from last time, it just doesn't seem feasible in here with all the other speeds. Let's move on to the 5, Montauk Traffic, who has some angles going for him. It's his second start off a long layoff. The blinkers come on for Linda Rice. This is a horse that showed some ability as a closing one-turn horse early in his career, and maybe he just needed it last time. I was a little disappointed the way he didn't fire.
Yeah, he didn't break great off the layoff in that race. He got away last, and he was sort of outrun early. I thought, he came 4 wide of the stretch. I thought he was racing on pretty late in there while unable to get a piece of it. As a first start back from the layoff, I didn't really want to be too hard on him. This is another horse a lot like Shotsky, who was, early in his career, it looked like he had a chance to be pretty good, this horse, and he really didn't get to run too much as a 3-year-old. I liked his maiden win a lot. I liked his Winkfield win a lot. I thought his Gotham was maybe a little better than it looks. He got bumped at the start that day and wound up way back in last, but was actually running at the end. This horse has some potential, and now he's second off the layoff.
High Velocity, graded stakes winner as a 2-year-old sprinting, has only sprinted once since then. Ran a one-turn mile last time out at Aqueduct, got to an uncontested lead that day and just didn't have it with the blinkers back on. He at least draws outside some of the other speeds, so maybe they'll try to sit with him. His buyers are going the right way, and I guess he's lightly raced enough that we could expect a little improvement. I do think 4-1 on the morning line's a little light.
I thought the same thing. I realized he's got some figures in his corner. So he looks like a pretty nice fit in this race. I look at him, a lot like I do his former stablemate, Ragtime Blues. I just don't really love any of his races, Dan. He's fine. He's got a little bit of speed, but maybe he can run without the lead in this race. I just don't really love this horse's form overall. He did bump into a pretty hot horse last time, though, in Little Commissioner. And 2 back when they sprinted him at Belmont. That was a very fast race.
Maybe the 7 Kumar is a little bit dirtied up in here. He is a true one-turn mile specialist who last time out chased wide over that inside track that Zoomer was able to benefit from. His buyers are light compared with some of the other horses in this race. But if this pace comes apart, maybe we can see him sort of grab a piece at a giant price.
Yeah, I questioned, how good even his best race was. I didn't know if it was necessarily going to be good enough to beat all the horses in here, Dan. But he's going to be a big price. And I know that, he came from way out of it to win 2 starts back out of one-turn mile. But he's shown in the past that if there's not a lot of pace in the race, he could be forward as well. So I think he's versatile enough to get the right trip in here.
Empty Tomb was 3rd in the Queens County last time out, a non-threatening 3rd to say the least, but I do like him cutting back to a one-turn mile. My main concern is that he was entered at Parks on December the 22nd. He was listed as a vet scratch, and it's taken him almost a month to get back into the entries.
Yeah, it's a real question, too, just what kind of form he's in. His last 3 races, they aren't great. He was facing some, really good horses in those races, though. Backside of the Moon ran a 106 buyer to win the Queens County. He faced Performer 3 starts back. They took him to Churchill Downs in between to face a good field. So I guess this is a little bit of class relief for him. And if you go back, prior to those last 3 races, Dan, 95 buyer, 1 back on dirt, and it's just his second start back on dirt off of a layoff there. So, he's got some races that make him a contender in here.
Number 9, Acker, 30-1 on the morning line. He is grade 3 placed on the main track, but that was going 1.5 miles in 2019. He won his most recent start, then went through the auction ring and was purchased by these connections for $38,000. He seems like more of a turf horse to me and may want a little bit more ground.
Yeah, he has won on dirt before, but I'm, perfectly willing to give him one in this race and just see what he does.
Malibu Pro's in pretty good form for AC Avila. Let's watch his most recent race. Now, this is a $40,000 claimer going 1 1/8, and he's going to get beat a nose by a hard-hitting older horse, Someday Jones. Someday Jones came out of this race, ran third, I believe, behind Zoomer with a 94 Beyer speed figure. He tried hard in this race, Malibu Pro. He just got beat, but his last 2 races, at least from a speed figure standpoint, they put him in the mix.
Yeah, he ran well in this race. He ran well 2 starts back to win a 1-turn mile with an 89. I know he's stepping up in class in here, Dan, but he's just a very consistent horse. It just feels like he shows up and runs his race every single time, and he's got plenty of races that make him a contender in here.
Just a super competitive race. I'd urge everybody to check out those free Formulator past performances and try to watch some replays, check out some trainer stats, try to find some angles in here. We throw up our top picks for this race. I have to admit, I'm a little bit confused. Zoomer ran well last time out with the rail, certainly going his way, but he's going to be a price again. You mentioned some of his prior races where he was kind of hinting at being a good horse. Maybe it's 6-1 or a little bit higher. I'll give him one more chance, but I see where you're going with my draft and setup, and I think Linda will have him primed for this one.
Yeah, I think so too. He's going to have to run better than he did off the layoff, but I think he has it in him, Dan. Again, I felt like this horse showed a lot of potential early on. If he's around that 5-1 morning line, I think this could be a good spot for him.
5, 1, 3, 4 for Mike, 4, 3, 6, 10 for me. An ultra competitive edition of the DRF race of the day. It's Friday's 7th at the Big A. Best of luck.